Hello and welcome to Overcoming Overwhelm, a nervous system approach to wellness, success, and health. I'm Mia Saenz, your host, and in this show today, you get to meet Sharon Otness. Now, I've known Sharon for years. We share the same birthday, and I just love her. So, some of the things that I want to share with you about her, I've known her a long time, is she works with people with addiction. That's what we're going to talk about today, and emotions. She's very vast in so much of what she does. She works with food and addictions, and she was the lifestyle director of the Bella Mia magazine, for those of you who still remember that. So we go way back, and I love this girl. So let's bring her on. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Mia. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad you're here. You've been so busy and now you made time for us. So thank you.
Happy to be here.
Would you like to share with us a little bit about your story that brought you into this whole line of coaching work? Because you find a modality that excites you and then you go for it and you bring
Yeah.
it to your people. So I love that about you.
Yeah, I was an interior designer for a long time. I was married, I had a daughter. And honestly, as life goes, sometimes we hit a crisis point. And my crisis point was kind of in my mid 40s when I realized I really had a problem with alcohol. My husband did as well, but my story is I knew that I needed to get help and I needed to get it now. I kind of knew that it was happening, as you do, but I didn't want to have to deal with it because that was no fun.
Yeah.
But really, anyway, things hit a crisis point where I needed to go and get help, and I did. And so through that process, and I will say, it took a few years of, in the midst of that, getting divorced and going off on my own with my daughter. And I was working with a company that had some kind of health product lines, which was very new to me. And I kind of wanted to see, like, what would they do? So I went in and took a course from this wellness person on it was actually a detoxification course. It took like 28 days kind of thing. And each week we met, and she was a wealth of information. And I was fascinated. I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is all the things that food is doing to my body. And of course, in the meantime, I was getting results from it. And I was like, I just was fascinated. And so that kind of started me on a whole new approach of health and wellness. And by the time I moved to LA with the same company I'd been working with, I knew it was time for a change. I knew I wanted to go back to school. It was going to be something in health. I didn't know exactly what yet. And I literally just sort of, opened, I remember Google at the time. And it was like, well, that's a no brainer. There's this course that I can take. I can do it on my own time. And so I became certified as a health coach through Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And that just, and that set me on a whole new path. That's after that is when I met you and so many wonderful people around me that were coaches and, in all different modalities. Mine ended up being health and wellness. And I've never looked back, it's just
That's wonderful.
been a fascinating journey for me.
I love the I never looked back because that's where you know that you're on the right path
Yes.
because you're flying in the direction that you love.
Yeah, I mean, I can always, I always dabble in interior design. I just remodeled the house. I mean, I can
Mhm.
always do that.
Yeah.
It was a love of mine. And of course, gardening is a huge love, all those things. But really, I know that I can make the most difference with what I'm doing in holistic health.
Yeah. I think it's
And of
beautiful.
course, being an addict myself, working with and helping people through addiction is a bonus.
Well, let's talk about that then. So, what are some effective strategies that you can share with us that people are struggling with addictions and how to understand and embrace our emotions? There's also, I want to talk a little bit. Sorry, guys, I'm breaking up the question because I'll restate the question. I had some work. Sharon was my facilitator. She has this emotion with senses
Mhm.
that it was just really incredibly powerful. It just, I guess because I'm in the process of teaching classes on self-love right now. Today we were talking about, besides emotions, we were talking about the senses, the bottles that, you know,
yes.
that are so powerful. So I do want us to get to that, but I will finish up and reiterate what I'm trying to ask you
Sure.
here, which is what are some of the effective strategies that you can share with us that people struggle with their addictions and their
Yeah.
emotions, and how to get onto a healthy way on a recovery, you know, jumpstart or program or journey or.
Yeah, well, with addictions, I mean, and of course, this is a broad topic of addictions. You know, it can be from alcohol, it can be from drugs, but it can also be from things like shopping and even sex and
Sugar.
gambling
Yeah.
you know, I feel like sometimes social media has become mine. You know, my phone. So there's many different forms of addiction, but when it comes right down to it, when especially I think when you talk about drugs and alcohol. Is that, you know, there probably is some sort of trauma in your background. So, I mean, first of all, know that it does not make you a bad person. I hope nobody thinks that anymore, that you're less than, you're something wrong with you, you know, all of those negative connotations, it's your fault, you know, all those things. Because yes, generally there is probably a trauma of some sort behind you. It could have happened when you were a child. So maybe as an adult, you don't think of it as a trauma, but as a child, you did, you know, it affected you that way. So I know that's one of the things I had to go back and look at, like, where was my trauma? You know, nothing seemed like traumatic as I looked at it as an adult. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But also, I'll know that when we're going to a different substance or a shopping or these, what we're really doing is we're trying to numb our pain. So there's a pain that's happening or has happened to you. And, you know, that doesn't feel good, right? So we want to feel better. So I know for myself, especially as I got into more of an abusive relationship, I did not want to be there, but I couldn't really admit that because I was married to this person and I had a child and I, you know, had lots of friends. So it didn't really correlate to me at the time that that's really what I was doing. I was also a very shy child, suffered from now what I realize is social anxiety. So school and everything was very hard for me in a social setting to ever feel like I fit in. And if you don't fit in, especially like in school or when you go to a networking event or something, you know, you what do, right? You just want to kind of numb that, or you want to feel like you're part of the party, part of the crowd. And so, you know, you do behaviors that maybe aren't the best for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of what it is. So if you can, you got to do some inner work. If you feel like you are suffering from some sort of addiction, there is no other choice than you need to get still with yourself and kind of just sit and go, what's happening here? Where's the pain? And that's not an easy process. It does not happen quickly. But so, you know, first off, if it is an addiction for a substance, you need to get off the substance because you're never going to get to do the work until you are. Yeah. So that's a hard, cold reality on that one.
Yeah. It is hard to commit to yourself when you're struggling, right?
Absolutely. It's really hard, you know, because again, it's painful. We don't like to be in pain.
Yeah. So these emotions create pain for us, right?
Yeah. So you know, emotions they play a significant role in our daily lives, you know. So how can we better understand and embrace our emotions to improve our overall well-being? Well, you know, you look at signals. Emotions are valuable signals that provide insights into our needs and desires. And so embracing them allows us to navigate life with greater authenticity. So if you're feeling sad, it's okay to feel sad. I know you don't want to stay there forever, but it's okay to say, you know what, I'm feeling sad today. I've gone through a lot of grief in the past couple of years, in particular, with my mom passing away. And then that next year, my brother, so there's a lot of grief that's built up. And what I found is that I'm also processing a lot of grief that I didn't process well when I was drinking, because I numbed it.
Interesting.
So I thought, yeah, I think
that does come up with, let me just say it, with deaths.
Yes, right. And all kinds of other things. You start realizing, oh, yeah, I wasn't really there then. Yeah. Now I'm feeling it, and it's okay because I need to feel it.
So we've talked about the emotions, right? And then there's something called the work emotional intelligence. It's the elevation, the matured level of our emotions. Why do people struggle with that?
Why? Say that one more time.
Why do people struggle with their emotional intelligence?
Oh, again, I think we just bypass it. We try not to, again, if we're not comfortable with an emotion. I mean, I think everybody, he's like, oh, joyful, happy, that's great to a point. Yes. If you allow yourself to go there, sometimes it's like, well, I can't be that happy, and then you negate that too. But I think it's especially with our emotions that we look at as negative, that grief, that sadness, the anger. We don't like to be angry because that's a bad thing, right? So we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge how we're feeling, right? Because we're on doing all this other stuff. And I keep bringing my phone up because I think it's a pertinent thing for nowadays. Yeah. So we're doing all these other things, and or oops, sorry, it's not an earthquake, and or I talk with my hands, and or using substances, all these things to, again, numb ourselves. Yeah. So we're just not allowing our emotions to settle in and feel them, and then we can work through them. And that's when you were talking about the work that we did together. That's like my new love. It's a process that was developed by therapists who found that they had really more easily done and more quick results with when they added in essential oils to their therapy process. So I learned how to do this process.
I found it fascinating. Sorry.
Yeah,
I just have to throw, and this is someone who's been doing this work for teaching it for 15 years. I found it fascinating. Something that I think we've talked about, that you're like, well, maybe you want to get certified in this. It was just very cool.
I can see that as an extension for you, but yeah, it's because it's a self-reflection and visualization process with aromatic oils. So it helps release unwanted emotions. And that's where, again, we get to, understand, well, what is this emotion? And that's even hard for a lot of people to come up with. What am I feeling? I don't even know. What am I feeling? How am I feeling? Because we don't get still and quiet and just feel it, and you'll feel it in your body. If you've got pain somewhere or consistent, chronic pain, chances are, there's some emotion that's stuck in there. And so if it's excess or unwanted emotions, we want to be able to release that. So that helps alleviate some of the pain.
Yeah. I see so clearly in our conversation how the emotions get amped up. We don't know how to deal with them. We become, so there's a detachment that we get where sometimes we look at ourselves and we're just like, I don't know how to get in there. I don't know what that is. So as we begin to look at it, we begin to understand more. So what you're talking about really is this opening, this awareness, like with the essences, the oils that we used for my session. What was powerful when I smelled it was it calmed me and opened up another space in my brain to be able to talk. That's why I found it so incredibly connective, and I found it to be beautiful. So what are some of the steps that people can take that would bring them into alignment or open up their passions. People want to live their lives, their daily life, happy and profound, where a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
How can we change them?
First off, I just want to share just an easy technique that I have been using actually a lot this last year. And again, partially because of grief and feeling sadness and feeling lonely, which is not something I ever thought I would feel. And a lot of, and some anger and all the other things with grief, is to really just sit still. And I put my hand over my heart. And this, from just being like I love you.
Very soothing.
Right? Just, I'm putting my hand on my heart just to remind myself, I am valued, I'm important, I am loved. And I just kind of it's a little bit of maybe a tap or just a kind of a soft rubbing, or just holding your hand, however you feel. And just breathe.
Just breathe.
Just breathe. And it's amazing how just doing that for a minute, 30 seconds, it kind of just gets you back into your body and yourself and your heart. So I've just felt that as such a nurturing exercise for myself, and I can do it anywhere. So when you talk about overwhelm, when I'm finding I'm even out and about, and I just actually got diagnosed at 65, ADHD. Okay. So talk about realizing why I get into overwhelm more often. Anybody that is out there that has this knows what I'm talking about. So, you get into a crowded situation or in something where it's overstimulating. Boy, I can just go right here. Nobody knows what you're doing, but it's just oh yeah, I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So there's that part. And then as far as getting yourself into a wonderful space is, my tagline is design your beautiful life. And that is all about designing a life you don't need to escape from. Right? So creating a life, or at least times in your life, where you are feeling fulfilled, you are feeling happy and joy, you're feeling loved. And it really, it's a matter of creating a life that's free from escapism, right? Because we just talked about all those things that we can just numb ourselves with, escape from, with, etc. And that really involves aligning daily activities with personal passions. Know that these are your, whatever is for you, and values, and fostering a fulfilling sense of purpose. And it's a lot of words, but basically maybe start with one thing. Pick something that you love to do, and then do that, and maybe expand on it and create it more and integrate it more into your life. I really was able to, in LA, I really didn't have a chance or a place to do gardening. So when I came back to Seattle and with my mom, and there's a garden here, it was the best outlet for me because, I didn't know quite what to do with myself at the time. And I was, kind of caring for her, but until she got to a point where she was really bad, I had lots of time in and out of business. So I really got into the garden and, getting my hands in the dirt, and it's expanded into not just, doing some pruning and that kind of thing and planting pretty flowers. But what it did was expand into another little bit of a mini business for me of creating an apothecary, because what I can do now is I plant my own medicinal flowers. Like I've got incredible calendula and chamomile this year, and I can cultivate those. I dry them, and then I can process them into, infused into oils, or make butters, make, skincare, all those things. I even make a couple of products for my puppy dog. So it's creating a sense of purpose in my life that is non-business, even though it's a little mini business. But, so that's an example of what that could look like for you.
Yeah. I love that opportunity, that when we give ourselves that opportunity to expand, it really follows the self-love, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, it's creating a life of love, or at least that's how I see it, even more, because when you follow what you want, like you said, and then take it from there and see where it goes. If you're doing that with your life all the time, you're actually invested in yourself. You're not in that space that you once felt like, who am I? And why can I not feel inside? Why does that feel so blank or so weird? Or why can't I remember, right? Our body is trying to protect us, so it has us forget.
Yeah.
And so when we're in that place of, I'll just call it the active aliveness, right? Or calmness, the active calmness it's beautiful to be able to move through and expand. Oh, I want to. So recently I knew that I was getting weaker and I needed to, because I had been sick over a couple years. And so I started telling myself, that's bullshit. Excuse me. I started telling myself that's not right. And so now I am different. I take so many walks a day. I stand up out of my chair differently, where I used to have to push myself up because I was too weak. No, you're not too weak. And I've just shifted a lot of that. And I've seen recently a lot of changes that make me happy, because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Especially even at my stage of being who I am, I'm working with myself. I'm like, no, that's not who you are. That's not what you want. Let's be who you want. And so whether it's, having more movement, or whether it's going on a spiritual journey, or whether it's implementing, which I did in Miami which I will be going back, but swimming on the weekends in that beautiful warm water, whatever it is that it lights you up, you're supposed to do that and more, literally.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always love the way that you frame things, Mia. But yeah, just, I like the fact that you're real to yourself. Like, no. Like, that is not who I'm going to be. No, this is me. Yeah. And then you follow through with that.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your free gift. I'd like you to share it with us. And then we're almost out of time. This stuff goes really fast.
I know. Well, the free gift is really, it's an essential oil ebook, and it's all about curbing and calming your cravings. So if most of us get cravings at some point in time. Sometimes it's can take over your life, or some of your life that you'd rather not, right? You're reaching for something else to soothe yourself. So this is a little more holistic approach to soothing yourself, so that you can calm yourself and like resist those cravings that you have. So it's a beautiful little ebook. It tells you, I think, if anybody wants to learn a little bit more just intellectually too about essential oils, it's in there as well. And it's just my gift to you. I think you'll find it fascinating.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we
yeah, I think just the piece that I always talk about too is emotional health. It's a cornerstone of our holistic well-being. It is part of being really well. I mean, if you look at I look at a big wheel and you have sections going off the wheel, mental health, emotional health is a big part of that. And there's spiritual, and there's, money. And I know you talk about all kinds of those things, but our emotional health is very much a part of that. And so the more we process our emotions and keep it positive and take care of ourselves, the better we're going to be overall, not just physically.
I love that. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on. Yeah.
Always good to talk to you, Mia.
You too. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Overcoming Overwhelm. We'll see you in another one.